His hands were dangerous, the kind that knew exactly where to touch to make you forget who you were. I remember the way he pressed me against that kitchen counter, his breath hot against my neck, whispering promises he'd break by morning. I didn't know then that love could feel like drowning while someone held your hand. Introduction. My name is Claire Monroe, and I'm 34 years old. I live in Brooklyn, in a small apartment with exposed brick walls and windows that overlook the chaos of the street below. I'm a writer, which means I spend most of my days observing people, trying to understand what makes them tick, what makes them stay, what makes them leave. But somehow, I couldn't see what was happening in my own life. For 2 years, I was with someone who made me feel like I was constantly walking on a tightrope. His name was Ethan, and when I met him, he was everything I thought I wanted. Tall, with dark hair that fell just slightly over his intense green eyes. He had this way of looking at me that made my stomach flip, like I was the only person in the room, like I was something precious and rare. His body was lean and strong, the kind of frame that came from discipline, not vanity. When he touched me, it felt like electricity. When he kissed me, the world stopped. But I'm getting ahead of myself. This is the story of how I discovered I was in a toxic relationship, and how I found the strength to walk away. It's not a pretty story. It's not simple, and it took me far too long to see what was right in front of me. But maybe, if you're listening to this, you need to hear it. Maybe you're where I was. Maybe you're wondering if what you're feeling is normal, if love is supposed to hurt this much, if you're crazy for questioning everything. You're not crazy. I wasn't crazy. And this is how I learned the difference between love and control. I met Ethan at a gallery opening in Williamsburg. It was one of those pretentious art events where everyone drinks cheap wine and pretends to understand abstract paintings. I was there for work, covering the emerging art scene for a lifestyle blog. He was there because, as I'd learn later, he liked to be seen at places like that. It made him feel cultured, sophisticated. He approached me while I was standing in front of a painting that looked like someone had thrown red paint at a canvas and called it passion. "It's terrible, isn't it?" he said. I turned, and there he was. That smile, those eyes. He wore a navy blue shirt with the sleeves rolled up, revealing strong forearms. Everything about him seemed intentional, curated, perfect. Completely terrible, I agreed. And just like that, we were talking. We talked for 3 hours. About art, about writing, about the city, about everything and nothing. He told me he worked in finance, something vague about investments and portfolios that I didn't really understand and didn't really care to. What mattered was the way he leaned in when I spoke, the way he laughed at my jokes, the way his hand brushed against mine when we walked out of the gallery together. "Can I see you again?" he asked, and I said yes before I could think about it. That first month was intoxicating. He texted me every morning with sweet messages. He planned elaborate dates, took me to restaurants I could never afford, sent flowers to my apartment. He made me feel special, chosen, like I'd won some lottery I didn't know I'd entered. Our first night together was overwhelming in the best way. We'd had dinner at this Italian place in the West Village. Too much wine, too much laughter. Back at his apartment, everything felt urgent, necessary. His kisses were demanding, his hands confident as they traced the lines of my body, learning me like a language. When he undressed me, he did it slowly, deliberately, his eyes never leaving mine. The way he touched me was almost reverent, as if I was something sacred. We moved together like we'd done this 1,000 times before, his body fitting against mine perfectly. His breath ragged in my ear as we found our rhythm. Afterward, he held me close, his fingers drawing lazy patterns on my skin, and I felt safe, wanted whole. I thought I'd found something real. The first time something felt off was about 6 weeks in. I was supposed to meet my friend Sarah for lunch. something we'd planned for days. That morning, Ethan called. "I had a terrible night," he said, his voice heavy. "Work stuff. I really need to see you today." "I have plans with Sarah," I said, "but I can see you tonight." There was a pause. A long one. "Right," he said finally. "No, of course. Your friend is more important." "Ethan, that's not what I said." "It's fine, Claire. Really, I just thought, never mind. Have fun with Sarah." He hung up, and I sat there, staring at my phone, feeling this strange knot in my stomach. He'd made me feel guilty for having plans. But more than that, I found myself actually considering canceling on Sarah. That's what he wanted, wasn't it? For me to choose him. I went to lunch with Sarah anyway, but I couldn't focus. I kept checking my phone. He didn't text. By the time I got home, I was anxious, worried I'd hurt him. I called, and he answered on the 5th ring. "Hey," he said, his voice flat. "Are you okay?" "Yeah, I'm fine. Just had to deal with my problems alone, that's all." "Ethan, I offered to see you tonight." "It's fine, Claire. I get it. I'm not your priority." We talked for an hour. Or rather, I apologized for an hour. By the end of it, somehow, I was the one who'd done something wrong. I was the one who needed to make it up to him. Looking back, that was the pattern establishing itself, but I couldn't see it then. The slow descent. Over the next few months, things shifted in ways so subtle I barely noticed. He started commenting on what I wore. "That dress is pretty short, isn't it?" he'd say, with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "I mean, wear what you want. I just don't want other guys getting the wrong idea." He'd ask about my day in detail, wanting to know where I went, who I talked to, what we discussed. At first, I thought it was sweet, that he was interested in my life. But then it started to feel like interrogation. "Who's this guy in your Instagram story?" he'd ask. "That's Marcus, Sarah's boyfriend. We all went to that concert together, remember? I told you about it." "Right. He seems really friendly with you in that photo." "Ethan, Sarah was standing right there. You can't even see her in the frame, but she was there." "I'm just saying, Claire, I'm not blind." My friends started noticing too. Sarah was the first to say something. "Where have you been?" she asked one day over coffee. "I feel like I never see you anymore." "I've been busy," I said. "Work and Ethan." "Ethan," she repeated. "Claire, does he ever let you do anything without him?" "It's not like that," I defended. "He just likes spending time with me. Every single night. You used to have your own life." I laughed it off. I told her she didn't understand, that Ethan was intense because he loved me so much, that this was what real commitment looked like. But at night, alone in bed while Ethan slept beside me, I'd stare at the ceiling and feel this heavy weight on my chest. Something was wrong. I just couldn't name it yet. The physical connection as control. Our intimate life became another way he exerted control, though I didn't realize it at the time. Ethan was skilled, attentive, knew exactly how to make my body respond to his. Those moments when he'd pull me close, his hands gripping my hips, his mouth claiming mine with an intensity that left me breathless. I felt powerful and powerless at the same time. He knew how to use desire as a weapon. After an argument, after making me feel small or wrong or crazy, he'd touch me in that way that made me forget everything else. His fingers would find their way under my shirt. His lips would trace my collarbone, and suddenly we'd be tangled together, my back against the wall or the bed or wherever we happened to be. In those moments, when he moved inside me with that controlled urgency, whispering how much he needed me, how I was his, only his, I'd feel the anger and hurt dissolve into something else entirely. Sex became his apology, his reassurance, his way of pulling me back in every time I got close to seeing the truth. And God help me. It worked. Because my body responded to him even when my mind knew better. The chemistry was undeniable, almost chemical in its intensity. After, when he'd hold me close and stroke my hair and tell me he loved me more than anything, I'd convince myself that this was proof, that what we had was real, that the bad moments were just noise. But love isn't supposed to be a transaction. Pleasure isn't supposed to be a tool to make you forget pain. I just didn't know that yet. By month 9, I'd stopped seeing most of my friends. It wasn't a conscious choice. It happened gradually. Every time I made plans, Ethan would have a crisis, a bad day at work, a family issue, something that meant he needed me, right then. And how could I say no to someone I loved who needed me? My editor called one day. "Claire, I've sent you 3 assignment offers and you've turned them all down. What's going on?" "I've just been focusing on other projects." I lied. The truth was, Ethan didn't like when I traveled for work. He said it stressed him out, not knowing where I was or who I was with. He'd call constantly when I was away, getting upset if I didn't answer immediately. It was easier to just stay home, to take assignments I could do from my apartment, where he could see me, where I was safe and accounted for. I stopped writing the kind of pieces I loved, the personal essays and deep dive features that required me to go out into the world and talk to people. I started writing listicles and short blog posts, things that didn't require me to be anywhere but in front of my laptop, where Ethan could lean over and see my screen, ask what I was working on, read over my shoulder. "This paragraph is confusing," he'd say. "You should rewrite it." "I like it how it is." "I'm just trying to help, Claire. You're so sensitive about your writing." I rewrote the paragraph. My apartment, which had once felt like my sanctuary, started to feel like a cage. Ethan was there constantly. He had a key. He'd let himself in, surprise me while I was working, act hurt if I seemed anything less than delighted to see him. "You weren't happy I came by," he'd say. "I was just focused on work. You startled me. So now I'm not allowed to visit my girlfriend." That's not what I said. That's what it sounded like. And we'd spiral. Again. Always. Until I was apologizing for something that wasn't my fault. Until he was forgiving me for hurting him in ways I hadn't. Until we were in bed again, and his hands were erasing my doubts, and his body was writing new rules over my boundaries. It was my best friend from college, Maya, who finally forced me to look at what was happening. She flew in from Chicago for a weekend, refusing to take no for an answer. "I miss you," she'd said on the phone. "And I'm worried about you. Please, Claire, just one weekend." Ethan wasn't happy about it. "You're really going to spend the whole weekend with her?" he asked. "What about me?" "Ethan, I haven't seen her in over a year." "Fine. Go. Have fun with Maya. I'll just be here, alone." The guilt sat heavy in my stomach all through Friday night. Maya and I went to dinner, got drinks, tried to catch up, but I kept checking my phone. Ethan wasn't texting. The silence felt aggressive, purposeful. "He's really got you trained, doesn't he?" Maya said, watching me refresh my messages for the 10th time. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Claire, look at yourself. You're having dinner with your best friend, and all you can think about is him. That's not normal. You don't understand our relationship. Then explain it to me, because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you've disappeared into this guy. Where's the Claire who used to stay out until 3 a.m. talking about books and dreams? Where's the girl who traveled to Thailand alone just because she wanted to? Where's my friend?" I wanted to argue, but the words wouldn't come, because she was right, and I knew it, and knowing it felt like standing on the edge of something terrifying. That night, back at my apartment, Ethan was waiting. He'd let himself in, was sitting on my couch in the dark. "Wanna have fun?" he asked. "You scared me. Why are you sitting in the dark?" "Just thinking. About us. about how you'd rather spend time with Maya than with me. Ethan, I'm allowed to have friends. Of course you are. I never said you weren't. Why are you attacking me? I'm not. I stopped, took a breath. I'm tired. Can we not do this tonight? He stood up, crossed the room to me. His hands cupped my face, gentle, tender. When he kissed me, it was soft, apologetic. I'm sorry, he whispered. I just love you so much it makes me crazy sometimes. You know that, right? That everything I do is because I love you. And there it was again. The confusion, the doubt. Was I the problem? Was I being unfair? He loved me. This was just what love looked like, wasn't it? Intense, consuming, all-encompassing. We made love that night, and it was different. Slower, his touch almost desperate, as if he was trying to brand himself onto my skin, to remind me that I was his. Afterward, as I lay in his arms, I felt more alone than I ever had. 2 weeks later, I found his phone unlocked on my kitchen counter. I wasn't snooping. It just lit up with a notification, and I glanced at it, and there was a message from a name I didn't recognize. Can't wait to see you tonight. My heart stopped. I picked up the phone. I knew I shouldn't, but I did. There were dozens of messages from multiple women, flirtatious, sexual, recent, some from dates when he'd told me he was working late, when he'd made me feel guilty for wanting to make plans because he was so busy, so stressed. I scrolled, my hands shaking, my vision blurring with tears. And then I found the group chat, him and his friends, talking about women like we were objects, laughing about manipulation tactics. One message from Ethan. The key is to keep them off balance. A little jealousy, a little guilt. They'll do anything to prove themselves. Another. Mine's been so clingy lately, but the sex is too good to end it yet. I dropped the phone like it was burning me. When Ethan came home an hour later, I was sitting exactly where I'd been when I read those messages. He took one look at my face, at his phone in my hand, and he knew. Claire. Don't, I said. My voice sounded strange, distant. Don't say anything. It's not what you think. I laughed. It came out harsh, broken. It's not what I think. You've been cheating on me. You've been lying to me. You've been... God, Ethan. You've been playing me this entire time. That's not true. I love you. You don't love me. You don't even like me. I'm just... What? A toy. A project. Someone you can control and manipulate, and... You're being dramatic, he said, and his voice had shifted. Gone was the apologetic tone. Now he sounded annoyed, dismissive. Those messages don't mean anything. Guys talk shit. It's what we do. Get out. Claire, come on. Let's talk about this like adults. Get out of my apartment. Now. He stared at me for a long moment, and I saw something in his eyes I'd never noticed before. Something cold. Something that had probably always been there, hidden beneath the charm and the intensity and the manufactured passion. You're going to regret this, he said quietly. When you realize what you're throwing away, when you're alone and you remember how good we were together. We were never good together, I said. You just made me think we were. There's a difference. He left, and I sat in my apartment, in the silence, and I felt like I'd woken up from a 2-year nightmare. The aftermath. The next few weeks were the hardest of my life. Not because I missed Ethan exactly, but because I had to face what I'd allowed to happen to myself. How I'd let someone reshape me, isolate me, convince me that love was supposed to feel like constant anxiety. He tried to contact me. Texts, calls, emails. First apologetic, then angry, then apologetic again. I blocked him on everything, changed my locks, told my friends what had happened, though admitting it felt like confessing a shameful secret. Sarah came over the night after I blocked him and just held me while I cried. I should have seen it, I kept saying. I should have known. That's what he wanted, she said, for you not to see it. That's how people like him work. I started therapy, sat in an office with a woman named Dr. Reeves who had kind eyes and didn't judge me when I talked about how stupid I felt, how weak. You weren't weak, she said. You were in love with someone who weaponized that love against you. That's not a failure. That's abuse. The word felt too big, too serious. Abuse was dramatic, violent, obvious. What Ethan did was subtle, psychological, coded in affection and desire. Abuse isn't always physical, Dr. Reeves explained. It's any pattern of behavior designed to control you, to diminish your sense of self, to make you dependent. From what you've told me, that's exactly what happened. Learning that helped. Learning that I hadn't just chosen wrong, that this was a calculated pattern, that there was actually a name for what had happened to me. Coercive control, emotional abuse, gaslighting. I started reading about toxic relationships, about narcissism, about trauma bonds. I learned that the intense chemistry, the amazing sex, the highs and lows, that wasn't passion. That was manipulation. The intermittent reinforcement, the cycle of devaluation and idealization, it was all textbook. Understanding it intellectually didn't make it easier emotionally. I'd wake up in the middle of the night, my body remembering his touch, my mind replaying moments when I'd felt so loved, so seen. And then I'd remember that none of it was real. That the person I'd loved was a performance. That the man I'd given 2 years of my life to had never actually existed. 3 months after Ethan, I published an essay about toxic relationships. It went viral. Thousands of women reached out to share their own stories, to tell me they'd lived through something similar, to thank me for putting words to their experience. Reading their messages was overwhelming. So many women who'd felt crazy, who'd questioned their own reality, who'd lost themselves in relationships that looked like love but felt like drowning. I started writing more about it, about the red flags I'd missed, about how isolation happens gradually, about how abuse doesn't always look like what we think it does, about how someone can say they love you while systematically destroying your sense of self. My editor called. "This is powerful work, Claire. This is what you should be writing." And for the first time in years, I felt like myself again. Like I was taking up space in the world in a way that mattered. In a way that was mine and not dictated by someone else's needs or insecurities or control. I reconnected with friends I'd neglected. Had dinners that went late into the night. Said yes to spontaneous plans without checking my phone first. Without the knot of anxiety in my stomach. I traveled for work again. Took an assignment in New Orleans, spent a week interviewing musicians and eating beignets and walking through the French Quarter alone at midnight just because I could. I started dating again, cautiously. Had a few nice dinners with kind men who respected my boundaries, who didn't try to rush me into anything, who took "I'm not ready yet" as a complete sentence that didn't require explanation or apology. One guy, Daniel, I saw for a few weeks. He was sweet, respectful, interesting. But one night, he made a comment about how he'd driven past my apartment and noticed my lights were on late. "You drove past my apartment?" I asked. "Yeah, I was in the neighborhood. I almost stopped by." It was innocent. Probably, but my whole body went cold. That feeling of being watched, of being monitored, of someone keeping track of where I was and what I was doing. "I need to go," I said. "Claire, what's wrong? I need to go." I left, went home. Sat on my couch and cried because I realized how much healing I still had to do. How Ethan had changed something fundamental in me, had left marks that weren't visible but were absolutely there. Dr. Reeves helped me understand that trauma responses were normal, that hypervigilance was my brain trying to protect me, that it would take time to learn to trust again, to feel safe again, to believe that not every man who showed interest was secretly trying to control me. "You're not broken," she said. "You're healing, and healing isn't linear." 6 months later. It's been 6 months since I left Ethan. 6 months since I took my life back. And I'm not going to lie and say everything is perfect now, because it's not. I still have moments where I doubt myself, where I wonder if I overreacted, if I threw away something good because of a few text messages. But then I remember how it felt to be with him. The constant anxiety, the walking on eggshells, the way I'd twisted myself into smaller and smaller shapes trying to be what he wanted, the way I'd lost my friends, my work, my sense of self. And I remember that love isn't supposed to feel like that. Real love doesn't isolate you. It doesn't make you question your sanity. It doesn't use desire as a tool to keep you compliant. It doesn't require you to abandon who you are to prove your devotion. I know that now. I know what I'll accept and what I won't. I know my boundaries. I know my worth. And maybe that's the gift in all of this. Maybe going through something that almost broke me taught me how strong I actually am, how resilient, how capable of saving myself when I need to. Understanding the red flags I missed. Looking back, the signs were there from the beginning. I just didn't have the framework to recognize them. Let me share what I've learned, what I wish I'd known then. Love bombing. That first month with Ethan, when he showered me with attention and gifts and constant communication. That wasn't romance. That was love bombing. It's a manipulation tactic designed to create intense attachment quickly, before you have time to see who the person really is. Real relationships build gradually. They don't go from 0 to 100 in a week. Isolation. He didn't wake up one day and demand I stop seeing my friends. He did it slowly, strategically. A guilt trip here, a manufactured crisis there, making me choose between him and others until choosing him became automatic. If someone in your life is consistently upset when you spend time with other people, that's not love, that's control. Gaslighting. You're too sensitive. That's not what I said. You're remembering it wrong. Ethan made me doubt my own perceptions, my own memory, my own reality. Gaslighting is insidious because it makes you think the problem is you, that you're crazy or oversensitive or difficult, using intimacy as control. The way he'd use sex to smooth over problems, to pull me back in after arguments, to make me forget my valid concerns. Physical connection is beautiful, but when it's wielded as a tool to manipulate your emotions and keep you dependent, it's abuse. Monitoring and surveillance. The constant questions about where I was, who I was with, what I was doing, the driving by my apartment, the wanting to know my passwords, the checking my phone. In healthy relationships, trust is the foundation. In toxic ones, surveillance is emotional volatility. The way his moods would swing from adoring to angry to wounded, never knowing which version of him I'd get, walking on eggshells, constantly trying to manage his emotions, making myself smaller to avoid triggering his anger or hurt. That's not partnership. That's emotional hostage-taking. The trauma bond. Dr. Reeves explained trauma bonds to me, and it was like finally understanding a puzzle I'd been staring at for months. A trauma bond is an attachment that forms through cycles of abuse and positive reinforcement. It's why I stayed. It's why I defended him. It's why part of me still misses him, even knowing what he did. The pattern works like this. Tension builds, an incident occurs. There's reconciliation and calm, and then the cycle repeats. Each time, The bond gets stronger because your brain starts associating the relief of the calm phase with the person who caused the pain in the first place. They become both the source of your distress and your comfort. Add in intense physical chemistry, and the bond becomes almost biochemical. Oxytocin, dopamine, all the chemicals associated with attachment and pleasure. They flood your system during the good moments and create a literal addiction to the person hurting you. Understanding this helped me forgive myself. I wasn't weak or stupid. I was caught in a psychological trap that has been studied and documented and happens to smart, strong, capable people all the time. Rebuilding my sense of self. The hardest part of recovery wasn't missing Ethan. It was remembering who I was before him. He'd convinced me that my interests were boring. My work wasn't important. My friends were bad influences. My instincts were wrong. Peeling back those layers of false beliefs was like archaeology, carefully excavating the person I used to be. I made lists. Actual lists on paper. Things I used to love. Things I used to do. Dreams I used to have. And then, methodically, I started reclaiming them. I took a pottery class I'd been interested in 3 years ago, before Ethan said it was a waste of time. I went to readings at bookstores. I said yes to social invitations even when I felt anxious. I bought clothes I liked without imagining his commentary. I went to movies alone. I took long walks without telling anyone where I was going. Each small act of autonomy felt revolutionary, because for 2 years, I'd needed permission for everything. Not explicit permission, but I'd learned to run every decision through the filter of, what will Ethan think? And now, I was learning to trust my own judgment again, learning what healthy love looks like. I'm not in a relationship now, and that's intentional. I need to be whole on my own before I can be with someone else, but I'm learning what I'll look for when I am ready. Healthy love is calm. It's not constant drama and intensity. It doesn't make you feel like you're on a roller coaster with no seatbelt. Peace isn't boring. Peace is precious. Healthy love is supportive. It encourages your growth, your friendships, your independence. It doesn't try to make you smaller or more manageable or more dependent. Healthy love is respectful. It honors your boundaries. It accepts no without trying to change your mind. It doesn't use guilt or manipulation to get its way. Healthy love is honest. It doesn't require detective work or reading between lines or wondering if you're being told the truth. There's transparency, trust, reliability. Healthy love is consistent. You don't have to guess how the person feels about you. You're not constantly trying to earn or prove anything. The affection is steady, not intermittent reinforcement to keep you hooked. I didn't know any of this before. I thought love was supposed to be consuming, overwhelming, all-encompassing. I thought intensity meant depth. I was wrong. Intensity often just means instability. For anyone who recognizes themselves in my story, if you're reading this or listening to this and you're seeing yourself in what I've shared, I want you to know something. You're not crazy. You're not overreacting. If your gut is telling you something is wrong, listen to it. You deserve a relationship where you feel safe, where you can be yourself, where you're not constantly anxious or walking on eggshells or trying to be smaller or quieter or different. Leaving is hard. I know it is. The practical obstacles are real. Maybe you live together. Maybe you're financially entangled. Maybe you share friends or family. And the emotional obstacles are even harder. You might still love them. You might remember the good times. You might think it will get better, that if you just try harder or communicate better or love them enough, it will go back to how it was in the beginning. It won't, because the beginning was a performance. The person you fell in love with was a mask. And underneath is someone who needs to control you to feel powerful. That doesn't change because you love them harder. You might be scared to leave because they've convinced you that no one else will want you, that you're too difficult or too much or too broken. You're not. That's what they want you to believe, so you'll stay. You might worry that you're giving up on them, that you're not being supportive enough, that if you were a better partner, this would work. You can't love someone into being healthy. You can't fix them. You can only save yourself. And if you do leave, know that the aftermath is going to be hard. You're going to miss them. You're going to doubt yourself. They're going to try to pull you back in. Stay strong. Lean on friends. Get therapy. Block them on everything. Don't fall for the apologies or the promises to change. Real change takes years of dedicated work, and most people like this don't think they need to change because they don't think they did anything wrong. Surround yourself with people who remind you of who you are, who see you, who want good things for you without needing anything in return. Those relationships will show you, by contrast, just how unhealthy your toxic relationship was. It's been almost a year now since I walked away from Ethan. Almost a year since I chose myself. And I'm not going to stand here and tell you it's been easy, because it hasn't. Recovery from emotional abuse is not a straight line. It's messy and complicated and full of setbacks. But I'm here. I'm whole. I'm writing again. Really writing. The kind of work that comes from deep inside me and isn't filtered through someone else's judgment. I have my friends back. I have my life back. I have myself back. I think about the Claire who stayed with Ethan for 2 years, who couldn't see what was happening to her, who thought love was supposed to hurt. And I feel compassion for her. She was doing her best with the tools she had. She was trying to make something work that was never designed to be healthy. She was strong, even when she felt weak. And to the Claire who finally left, who sat in her apartment with shaking hands and said, "Enough," who chose the terrifying unknown over the familiar pain, I'm proud of her. I'm proud of me. Because here's what I know now. Walking away doesn't mean you didn't love them. It means you loved yourself more. And that's not selfish. That's survival. That's strength. That's the bravest thing you can do. Sometimes love doesn't stay. Sometimes people we care about hurt us in ways we never imagined possible. Sometimes the life we thought we were building turns out to be a prison we didn't know we were in. And sometimes the most loving thing we can do is leave. If you're in a relationship that makes you feel small, that makes you question your reality, that makes you anxious and afraid and constantly trying to prove your worth, please know that you deserve better. You deserve peace. You deserve respect. You deserve a love that doesn't ask you to disappear. And if you've left a relationship like that, if you're in the messy middle of healing, if you're rebuilding yourself from the ground up, I see you. I know how hard it is. I know how it feels to miss someone who hurt you. I know how confusing it is to grieve a relationship that was harming you. You're not alone in this. The night I walked away was the beginning of getting my life back. It was the night I chose freedom over familiarity. It was the night I decided that being alone was better than being with someone who needed me small to feel big. I don't regret the time I spent with Ethan, strange as that sounds, because it taught me what I won't accept. It showed me my breaking point. It proved that I'm stronger than I ever knew. It gave me this story. And maybe this story will help someone else recognize their own. So this is me, Claire Monroe, standing in my Brooklyn apartment with the windows open and the city sounds drifting in, telling you that you can survive this, that there is life after leaving. That you are not defined by the person who hurt you, or the relationship that broke you, or the time you lost, trying to make something work that was never meant to. You are defined by your resilience, by your courage, by your